Oh, man. Are you on page 97 yet, Pete?
No, I'm still stuck on Noel Gallagher on page 92.
Oh, man. You wait till you get another 5 pages in, man. You'll love it. Anyway, welcome back, clangers. Welcome to episode 2 after the raging success of episode 1. People are still talking about it. Every time I speak to myself in the mirror, I remind myself. Peter, how are you, love?
I'm good.
I'm well?
Good. And I'm weird. I'm.
Are you being stopped in the street?
I know, but I'm bowled over by the sheer level of success and the amount of times that one person has actually emailed us.
Yeah, but that becomes a multiple neural, doesn't it? You know what I mean?
It does.
Anyway, what we did after episode 1 was to put out there into Clang World to ask if anybody would like to tell us their particular clangs.
And they did, didn't they?
We did. Have you got any lined up there? Because
I do. I've got a couple. I've got a couple of good ones. Yeah.
Hit me with a big one.
So this is from Derek. Derek says, we went to a wedding of Ian Brown's drum tech, and when we arrived at the reception, we were sat at table 4 with Ian Brown and his then wife. I was chatting to him about his new solo album, and he said he'd been working in a tiny studio 16 hours a day for 7 days a week. I remarked, saying it sounded like being in prison, totally forgetting that he'd not been long released following an air rage incident. Dull, says Derek. It apparently, went a little bit quiet after that. Really nice guy, though, he says. So,
nice. I reckon there might be, if we put it out there in the future, wedding clangs could be a good one because everybody's going to get stuck next to someone at a wedding.
I think wedding clangs is a good one. Yeah, I like.
I've had a couple of good ones. Sarah messaged in and said that Gordon Ramsay signed her pants, which
was she wearing them at the time?
Or was she wearing pants at the time? And did he have a pen relevant and handy?
Well, yes. Exactly.
Another great doubleheader. Paul said Bruce Dickinson bought him a beer and Jim Marshall called him an idiot. So that's the yin and the yang, that one, isn't it?
Yeah, that is. I've got another one here from Steve, right? And Steve says that at about 1998, he was involved in writing a script for a staff training video for Tesco, and they wanted somebody. They wanted a high profile star, and they went with Graham Norton. And at the time, he'd been in Father Ted, and that was about it. And he said,
"What a character!
Lovely bloke. Video went brilliantly. Graham was very humble and great fun. They had lunch in a subsidised Tesco's canteen, bangers and mash, followed by jelly, apparently, at the princely sum of £1.75.
Wow, that's an in-depth clang, that one.
Exactly, but he then goes on to say it was 13 years later, and he's at the British Comedy Awards. And he saw Graham there, and he thought, I'm gonna muster up the courage to go and talk to him. So he did, and he was sat on his own. So he held out his hand and he said, "Hi, Graham. You might not remember me, but." Apparently, Graham looked straight past him and said, "That's right, I don't," and then pissed off.
Oh man.
Yeah.
There's nothing funnier when it goes wrong a bit like that. Remind me to tell you the Noel Gallagher story sometime, but I'm not going to tell it now. All right? That's one for the future. But that's a belter. That is a belter. My friend Jeff Wood from Ireland. He's got loads, but the best one he came up with was that Michael Caine trod on his toe.
Yeah, I saw. I was following. Yeah, I saw that one come in. I seem to remember there's a lot of toe treading that goes on.
Yeah, there's a lot of toe treading, which we'll come to. And one more. Debbie said that she made Sean Bean spit out his gum with laughter.
You sure that wasn't? Sure that wasn't Mr. Bean?
No, it was Sean Bean, and I think that takes us on rather nicely to this evening's episode 2 of Clang, the podcast. Welcome, clangers. Nice to see you all again after last week. Nice to have you both back, I'm presuming, obviously. And yes, you never know. Could be singular, could be back to the one. It's the first week of special guests, ladies and gentlemen. And in my world, it doesn't get much more special, which is probably not phonetically right. However, I'd like you to introduce you to a man who I'm sure you all spent a cosy Saturday morning in bed with in your teens. Wondering why he had a rather snotty alien next to him or why he kept doing this every 5 minutes. He knows himself now these days as Mr. Gareth Jones. You'll know him as Mr. Gaz Topp. I know him simply as Gar. So, welcome, Gar.
All right,
Hey.
Smiles. Hello, Pete. How nice to meet
Hello,
you,
mate.
brother.
Yeah.
And this is, Gareth, Pete, Gareth.
Really nice. It's kind of a sort of like I'm this you are our first one, so you're a bit of a guinea pig, but I'm made up to be sat on the same podcast as you.
I am made up to be sharing your shed virtually.
A virtual potting shed. How are you, Gareth? What are you doing? You've just moved back to North Wales, haven't you?
Yes.
Back to your homeland.
Yeah, after 43 years, I think, living in London, I've moved back to North Wales. I moved down with The Alarm, a band you may have heard of, I don't know, Smiles.
Heard of them.
In 1981 when I was a roadie and kind of got stuck there, got a career in television on the back of roadieing, and then grew my children there. I fell in love, grew my children there, and when the kids were too old to live at home and the girlfriend was too fed up to hang out with me anymore, I decided that moving back to Wales was a good idea. So yeah, I've been dying to do it for 20 years and it feels fab to be home. It genuinely does. Dwi'n mor falch I fod adre.
I was going to say, when you pop down to Budgeons of the morning, do you speak in Welsh?
Yeah.
Do you, because you're quite fluent, aren't you?
I am fluent, yeah.
Yeah.
I won't show you now, but I've got a Welsh dragon tattoo there. Wait, it's not a tattoo, it grows there if you're a Welsh speaker when you're 30. And
after going on tour with you, I found out that you the only two times you speak Welsh is if you're with another Welsh person or you're a bit drunk.
Yeah, correct.
Because just to tell the viewers, we know each other obviously through that band, The Alarm, of which you were famously a roadie in the early days, and I have been the drummer for the last 14 years. So I remember first meeting you about 14 years ago and getting extremely excited that I was going to meet you, because obviously I was a fan from my youth, and then found out that you are actually one of my top 13 friends.
Top 13?
So, definitely in the top 13, nestling around Pete. So, we've been friends for years. And then obviously a couple of years ago we went to America, didn't we, for however long, on tour. Just basically spent the whole time together. It's great.
Honestly, we get on too well. We had 9 weeks in a van with 9 people or 11 people. Not a van,
a bandwagon.
A bandwagon, which is somewhere between a tour bus and a massive RV. But I say massive, but we're all right on top of each other. But you and me got on like we were brothers from the word go. It was lovely.
We've always been great pals. So that's great. So I'm going to slide over to Pete to hit you with an interesting question.
Okay.
So what we thought, just to add a little bit of interest to this, we create a sort of a section of kind of an icebreaker question. So the idea is, here you go, right? Celebrity deathmatch. Who comes out alive? Green Gilbert, Gordon the Gopher, or Hacker T Dog?
Oh, no question, Gilbert. No question. It always has to be. For very, very, very good reasons. Hacker's great, actually. Hacker's great. Ed the Duck. I think Ed the Duck was actually a puppet, but I think Yvonne Gilbert was real. And reality always beats fantasy. And Gilbert was a real person, a real creature who
was it. But I don't know. I'm not so sure. I'm not so sure, because I think Hacker T Dog would edge it all the time for me.
Hang on, I've got a Clang answer for you, which will work as evidence to back up my claim that it would always be Gilbert. We did an episode of Gilbert. There it is, Clang. I should do this in clanger, shouldn't I? Gilbert. We were doing an episode of Get Fresh in 1987, I think, in Great Yarmouth. And of the guests, Simon Climey were guests. Do you remember Simon Climey? Nobody does. But you might remember the other guest who Gilbert took on in a fight. Gilbert got a bit aggressive with this well-known American singer. And
I know it was.
Yeah, and the singer took a swing at Gilbert. To punch Gilbert, yeah. And Gilbert nutted him, and Gilbert had these 3 piano wire, like a Mohican thing, covered in latex, sticking up of his head, and it whacked Donny Osmond on the face.
No, it was Donny
No
Osmond.
way.
I remember that. Yeah,
And if
I
you remember,
that.
the Osmond family, they were renowned for their karate and jiu-jitsu and all that, right? So Gilbert beat Donny Osmond. So if Gilbert can beat an Osmond...
I might actually have to admit defeat on that one. In that case, I'm assuming also it was a little bit of a snotty mess after he headbutted.
Oh God, yeah! All my jackets from 1986 to 1989, 1988. The right hand shoulder were all utterly destroyed by Gilbert's snot. Which, hey kids, it was only KY jelly, really. That's what it was.
I was going to ask you what it was. Amazing.
Okay.
Scatter those illusions, Garth.
Before we get to the clang, here's the final Gilbert story. Get Fresh was a touring show. We went to different towns every week. Different production company made it every week. So you'd arrive in like Stranraer on a Thursday. We do rehearsals Friday, the show live Saturday afternoon, drunk on the train and back to London. And on the Thursday, my job was to go into a pharmacy in town and buy two things. A family-sized pack of KY jelly, which we used to fill up Gilbert's hollow nose. So you just before we did the take, he'd put his head back, he'd pump all the KY jelly into the nose, and then they go 3, 2, 1, cue, and the puppet, it wasn't a puppet, it was real, Gilbert's head would come forward, and then suddenly the snot would just start streaming.
Amazing.
So that was the one thing I had to buy. The other thing I had to buy was because we did an awful lot of programmes at seasides, in the water. I did canoeing, jet skiing, all that kind of stuff. You have to waterproof your radio transmitter and your monitor, your in-ear monitor. And the best way to do that is with a condom. You drop it into a condom and seal it with a rubber band. So I'm Gaz Topp, kids TV presenter, turning up in Stranraer on a Thursday. Can I have a family pack of KY jelly? And what's the strongest condoms you got? I'll need about 20.
You know that's going to go full circle, and then at some point in this series of podcasts, you're going to say to someone, "What's your biggest clang?" And you go, "I was in a chemist once, and that Gaz Topp came in and bought a load of condoms and some KY." Yeah, lovely chap.
I've lived in fear of that happening for years. I genuinely
Being
have.
exposed.
Yeah.
That's brilliant, man. That's not even a clang yet. Imagine when we get to the first question.
Oh,
no, exactly.
Stop
and speaking of which, nice segue, Smiley. You should do this for a living, mate.
Well, I'm clanged up to the max today, aren't I? I had a good one for you yesterday, didn't I? And you. Actually, there might be a connection with you there, Garth.
Yes,
you know
there is. It took me a while to work out. Yeah. I looked at the picture and thought,
Well, to tell you, bizarrely, I sent this to Mike Peters, and Mike Peters went, "Who's that?"
Yeah, you wouldn't get it at first notice. Yeah.
Dear viewer, we are talking about the amazing Mr. Adam Clayton from U2, who I bumped into last night at the Royal Albert Hall at a Stranglers gig, and he was extremely nice. And when I met him, I said,
those of us who know him as Binky.
"Oh, I wish I'd known that." I did introduce myself to the alarm drummer, and he went, "Oh, nice one," which I think's a general answer if I do introduce. When I randomly walk down the street and see a stranger I've never met and go, "Hi, I jumped for the alarm," generally people go, "Oh, lovely." I am pleased. Weirdo. So there you go. That's my one this week. I'll go for that. But I'd like to know, Mr. Gareth Jones, what's the first one, Pete? Biggest clang?
Yeah. Best one.
I'd like to know your best clang. Of all the years of television and hanging around people, whether they liked it or not, what is your best clang?
Hanging around people, whether they like it or not, with a family, with a family pack of KY jelly and super strong condoms.
Yeah. And also, you've already started quite high because you've already gone in with an Osmond. Now you're on,
good.
Yeah. So I don't know where you're going to go with this, but you jolly well.
I've got a few, but arguably the biggest clang on the planet, I think I can claim. Somebody once said to me, we're talking about ambition, talking about getting stuff done, this chap I was interviewing, and he said to me, "Gareth, aim for the stars and you'll clear the fence." which is a tenet which I take with me everywhere I go, right? Aim for the stars, you clear the fence. And the man who said that to me should probably know better than anyone else, because his name is Edwin Buzz Aldrin.
Oh, no.
That's a complete curveball.
Wow,
I didn't see that one coming.
That's knocked a few of mine out, I tell you.
Yeah.
Oh,
Sorry.
How did you interview him?
Yeah, I got to spend a day. I'll keep the story short. I got to spend. Whilst I was doing How, I also ran a little production company called Better Television with Clang, Michael Cumming, who directed Brass Eye, Clang, and we proposed this programme called An Afternoon on the Moon, which celebrated the 25th anniversary of the first moon landing. We took over children's BBC. I'm not really a BBC children's presenter, I'm an ITV guy, but they let my company take over. We made this 2.5-hour live show. We went to John F. Kennedy Space Centre. We interviewed astronauts. We got pop stars to talk about their view of the moon landings, if any of them remembered it. But the highlight was I arranged to have Buzz Aldrin flown over from California so I could go for a walk with him. And I went for a walk with a man who walked on the moon on the roof of Television Centre. And and it was just the day was great. I gave him a big Navy salute as he left, and then I got on a plane to fly back to Glasgow to do How To. And as I was flying up the west coast of Britain, we flew over North Wales, and I looked out of the window and I could see all of North Wales, the Llŷn Peninsula, Anglesey, the River Dee next to where I grew up in Flintshire, and in the sky was a child's moon, just a sliver of a moon, like the man in the moon. And I remember going out into the garden to look at the moon on the night that they walked on the moon. My dad woke me up in the middle of the night to watch it, and I just interviewed that man. I saw the moon, I broke my heart. I sobbed my heart out. It was a lovely moment.
Wow.
And was he nice? Because I've always heard that he can be a little bit fricky.
Yeah, he doesn't. He's been doing this a long time, and he's very much in control because everybody wants a piece of Buzz Aldrin. You know, if you're famous, it's really hard, and he's one of the most famous people on Earth and off it, right? And he was lovely with us. He was great. He knew that we were space kids. He knew that we were first generation Apollo kids, me and Michael, and we cared passionately and were very knowledgeable about the moon landing. So he was great with us. He gave us loads. I've got a picture. Actually, he's written on it, Gareth, aim for the stars and you'll clear the fence. Your friend Buzz Aldrin. Come on. How nice is that? He's pretty nice.
That's
Wow.
pretty awesome, actually.
I told you, Pete. I told you he'd have a good one.
I'm slightly concerned that maybe we should just wrap the whole bloody thing up now. 'Cause
Yeah.
I don't think anybody's going to start. Who's going to top Buzz Aldrin, eh?
Well, someone who's met Neil Armstrong, I think, probably. Yeah.
Yeah, you see, that's much rarer. That's like the Pokemon you can't get, isn't it? You know, Buzz Aldrin made himself available, but Neil became a recluse. He was from Wapakoneta, Ohio, which is like coming from Aberdaugleddau in North Wales. You know, it's the end of the universe. Yeah.
Amazing.
I have others. I mean, I could knock off a couple. I made a little list.
Go on then.
Buzz Aldrin, Noddy Holder from Slade, Jim Lee, Fred Dinage, Carol Vorderman, Gail McKenna, Gail Porter, Sean Lloyd, Charlotte Hindle, Danny Minogue, Kylie, and the other Minogue. You know, there are 3 Minogues, and I know all 3 of them.
I didn't know there were 3. Yeah. I knew there were 2.
The third one is called Brendan, and he looks exactly like Danny and Kylie crossed, but he's male. And he's a cameraman. He works in television in the UK.
Wow.
Okay, Kylie story. We were doing Get Fresh again. 1986, I think it was. Kylie was releasing her first or second single. She was a guest on the programme. The show is live from a field in Inverness in Scotland. And Kylie's just got off a plane from Australia. It's 10 o'clock in the morning on Saturday. We're standing in the field, and just before we come out of the break, the director says to me, Gareth, can you get a smile out of Kylie? She looks like she just got off a plane from Australia, you know what I mean? I said, all right, leave it with me. So I hear the sting in my ears, and stand by on cue, Gareth. And just as they were saying on cue, Gareth, I turned to Kylie and whispered something in her ear. And I won't tell you what it was, but as they cut to us live, Kylie slaps me in the chest and says, Gareth, you get worse as the morning goes on.
You've got to tell us what you said.
I can't tell you.
Okay. All right.
Can't tell you. I can't tell you.
Fair enough.
You mentioned the Vorderman in there as well.
The Vorderman Corporation, that's what we call her,
yeah.
She's a corporation. I knew her when she was just Carol. Actually, I sort of knew Carol, Clang, when I was 12. She's from North Wales, like me. I was from Holywell, she was from Prestatyn, and we used to go to rival schools, and my bus would go past her bus on the way to school in the morning. And because she went to the Catholic school, and I went to the Welsh language school, all the Catholic girls would go like that to the lads on the Welsh bus, and all the Welsh lads would go like that to the Catholic girls at the bus stop. And that was Carol Vorderman, and I got her the job on How. I got her the gig. That's my claim to fame.
So wow. she owes you everything then.
Yes, she does actually. Yeah, she owes me an awful lot more than she. Hey, she's all right, Carol. She's all right.
You've just reminded. There's a poem somewhere on my dim and distant memory called "Sunny Prestatyn," I believe.
I don't know it, but it's a lie.
I did it. I did it pre my O levels. I think actually.
Sunny Prestatyn. Oh, who wrote that then?
Worth a read.
Sounds a bit Pam Ayres-ish.
Yeah. No, it's not. No, it's definitely no. It's quite coarse in patches. Probably not for the likes of our dear clangers,
no,
but
not our dear clangers. They're precious little beings, aren't they? You know what I mean?
They are.
But so obviously I'm sure your other claim to fame is that you're in here, right? Surely there's a picture of you and everything. So I suggest you go and read up, Gareth.
Oh, I think Gareth might have frozen.
He looks. I thought I might have startled him a little bit. Frozen. It's like, really?
Oh, he's gone.
Okay, that means me and you have to fill in. That's
no,
really.
it's fine. It's fine. We can edit. He'll. I'm assuming he'll bring himself back in again in due course. Hang on a second. He's back.
He's back. 3, 2, 1. He's back in the room. There you go.
Sorry about that. It's the Welsh internet. It was the Welsh internet that just fell over, unfortunately. Sorry about that.
What was really funny was I actually said, because you're in my book, and you kind of looked at me like that, and I was waiting for you to go, what do you mean I'm in your book? And you actually didn't move. It all went a little bit weird. Live telly, man. Anything can happen. You know?
Well, when stuff goes well, anyone can do your job, right? But when when it all goes tits up and you still bring the show home, that's what they pay you for. It's the same in rock and roll, right?
That probably leads nicely to Pete's next question, because that probably ties in with the slight embarrassment.
Yeah, so
angle.
we think, we obviously, we've all got our kind of cool, nice little stories. But what was the most awkward or embarrassing one that you've had? One that still keeps you up at night?
Well, I am a fan, right? Above anything, I'm a fan of Slade, the Alarm, of Moonwalkers, of Star Trek, of Welsh Identity. I am a fanboy. I'm passionate about something. And I'm a big fan of Doctor Who. I've watched it since Patrick Troughton in the early 60s, the middle 60s. And I love Doctor Who. But when Jenna Coleman joined Doctor Who as Clara Oswald, she was initially Matt Smith's partner or companion, and then Capaldi's companion, I suddenly was unable to watch Doctor Who anymore. Because Jenna Coleman is one of the most beautiful women I have ever seen in my life. She has the same eyes, the same voice, the same haircut, the same dress sense as my very first girlfriend. And so whenever she was on screen, I just went into this sort of, what's the word?
You regressed.
Yeah, I just became a dribbling fool. And I couldn't follow the narrative anymore. What's happening? I was just thinking about her eyes. And then one day I walked less than 200 metres away from my house where I lived in Stoke Newington. I went to the post office And as I walked into the post office, Jenna Coleman walked out of the post office.
Hello, he's frozen again.
No, he hasn't.
That's pretty much how it was. Time
He's back
stopped.
with his first girlfriend again.
Yeah.
Time stopped, and when I saw her, all I could say was, I love you.
Oh, that's quite
And
Well,
then
that's
I
a lovely
had to
moment.
walk off. I couldn't speak to her. It was the only time I've been sort of starstruck, and it was an embarrassment for her more than me, because
Yeah.
it's probably a good job we didn't strike up a conversation, because she would have been utterly wowed by me and would have wanted to run off with me, and
Probably.
luckily that didn't happen.
Yes, it couldn't have ended well.
In all the years of live television, then, what was the most kind of embarrassing thing that something went drastically wrong on television?
Oh, all the time. In the very first episode of Get Fresh, I'd been out on the water riding a jet ski, and they cut to me whilst I'm still pulling my trousers on. I was doing my zip up, and they go, "Oh, hello, yes." There was that. So good job we didn't have wide-angle lenses in those days, right? That was pretty embarrassing. Stuff on How went wrong all the time. You see, you never saw the stuff that went wrong on How, because How wasn't a live show. We just, we shot it until we got it right. And all those experiments, all those magic tricks and all that stuff never worked first time. It always went wrong. And, we're supposed to know how to do this. We did How for 16 years, and yet we still got stuff wrong all the time, including, and this is the embarrassing one. It's not necessarily a clang, but we did a How in, I think, year 4 or year 3 of How To. We had a new producer, Adrian Edwards. And Adrian came with loads of stories to the show. Great man, brilliant man, lovely man. But one of the stories we told was about, I think the How was, how rude is it to burp? And it was all about how different cultures have different way of expressing thanks. And that in Arab countries, if you burp, it shows you enjoyed your meal. Oh, no, it isn't. We got a letter from the Arab League, who were very incensed at us generalising. It might be true for one tribe of Bedouins in a godforsaken part of Saudi Arabia, but it's not true for the educated modern Arab, is the line. So that was pretty embarrassing. Not quite a clang, but it got us in trouble.
I don't know. I
don't know. I like that one.
Yeah, it's almost a clang, isn't it?
Almost.
Yeah.
Other people you may know that I know. Oh, I'll tell you one that makes me really, 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 really happy, and you'll both get this for the same reasons as me. The title music to Get Fresh was done by Mick Jones of Big Audio Dynamite at the time.
Nice.
X the Alarm. Get Fresh. That's Sipo Mabuse, who was a rapper, and the music was by Mick Jones. So Big Audio Dynamite were a guest on Get Fresh. We were in Peterborough. I'm on top of the Millennium Dustbin on a spaceship having a fag with Phil Cornwell, who is Gilbert. And Big Audio Dynamite converge on this big flat showground that we're on, converge at the ship. And I leaned over and said, "Oh, hi guys." And Mick Jones of The Clash looks up at me and goes, "All right, Gaz, is that a spliff?" It wasn't, of course. But the idea that Mick Jones knew my name was the thing. And that wowed me. Mick Jones knows my name.
That's a shame. I'm disappointed it wasn't a spliff, actually, because that would have put a whole new complexion on the sort of the hours of Saturday morning TV that I watched, and you didn't do the sort of state that you were doing it in.
Well, we were in a state. We were often out on Thursday night and Friday night, but Phil Cornwell, who was the voice of Gilbert, had a number of addiction problems at the time. I'm sure he won't mind me saying that to you. Consequently, he wasn't a very good sleeper. In fact, he almost never slept. I could hear him. He had a room next door to me. I could hear him pacing up and down. And I'd wake up in the morning and there'd be letters shoved under my door, nonsense that Phil had written to me over the night. And Phil was sort of pretty sleep deprived when he was doing Gilbert's voice, so that's why it was all a bit freeform. Phil was way out there. I think he has a multiple personality disorder. I love it.
One of them being a snot monster.
Yeah. He just was real.
It doesn't get much more than that, does it?
No, that's true.
I talked to Gilbert. Gilbert was real. I was not talking to my mate Phil. I was not talking to John, who operated Gilbert. I was talking to Gilbert, the entity. You just believe it, don't you?
Well, you have to. That's why I remember years ago, a guy I was at college with was an amateur musician, and this isn't a clang, but he was an amateur magician. And he said the whole thing is you have to, but if you believe what you're doing is happening, then the audience believe it. It's almost like a hypnosis thing, isn't it? You create an environment in which people are attentive, or you create an environment in which people suspend disbelief. And if you can do that with a puppet, if you believe it, it becomes real. So Gilbert was real.
I still think Tommy Cooper was the ultimate kind of master of that. Doing nothing but making people believe that he was actually. But you did the stage show, didn't you?
I did, yeah.
Who did you play in that?
I played Miff Ferry, who was Tommy Cooper's manager. It was a brilliant production. There was only 3 of us in it. Danny Taylor, who played Tommy Cooper, Danny's wife at the time, Sharon, who played Tommy Cooper's wife, and I played, I think, 5 roles in it. I played a captain in the army that Tommy Cooper was in the late 40s, and I came on as the man from the BBC. Then for the bulk of the play, was Miff Ferry, who was a Scot from Edinburgh, so I had to speak in a Morningside accent throughout. And then I played the Queen in that. There was one scene where we reenact what Tommy Cooper actually said to the Queen at a Royal Command performance, and so I come on dressed as the Queen. You don't realise it's me. I've got a back to the audience, the hat, the skirt, everything. Then turn around.
That's one for the CV, Gaz.
I played the Queen. It was fantastic. I did the whole thing in 1950s Queen voice. Yeah. Was it Tommy Cooper said to the Queen, he said, excuse me, Your Majesty, are you a fan of the football? And she says, no, not necessarily. He says, good, can I have your tickets to the cup final then? Actually what he said. And it's in the show. It was a great show. I was privileged to do that. Okay, back to my list, right? Because how are we doing for time? We're all right.
No, you're all right. You're
okay.
All right.
Charlotte Hindle. Charlotte was my co-presenter on Get Fresh, a lovely northern lass whose mum, Clang, was Madge Hindle, who played Renee Roberts in Coronation Street.
Coronation Street. Renee Roberts. God, that's going back a few years, isn't it?
And she was also in Nearest and Dearest, The Pickles Family, a comedy, a northern comedy. You guys are a bit young to remember that, I reckon.
I'm probably a bit young. Pete won't be.
Oi, easy, Tiger.
Okay, couple of others. One of the nicest person I think I've ever met, the most fascinating person I think I've ever met, was Ian Dury. Did you ever meet Ian Dury?
Oh, he's someone I'd love to have met. I always kind of imagined he would have been a little bit tricky, actually.
Yeah.
I was expecting that, but he was super generous with me. Maybe I got him on a good day, things were going well, or maybe things weren't going well, and he was trying to, be more popular. That's what pop stars do, get to the people. But he was fantastic with me and performed the bus driver's prayer. Do you know the bus driver's prayer?
Oh, yes. Our Farnham, who art in Hendon, Harrow, be thy name.
Thy Kingston come, thy Wimbledon.
In Erith,
as it is. Yes.
I can't, yeah.
So I've got a video.
You're really showing your age now.
I've got a video of Ian Dury performing that for me, which I think is unique, and his voice doing it is perfect, isn't it? Ian Dury, hello, I'm from Essex. Although that's my David Essex voice, it's the same thing.
So, I was going to say you're going a bit David.
It's me, David.
You are. Yeah. I didn't realise actually that you were a man of quite so many voices.
They're not all mine. I've always been a terrible mimic. I think I grew up bilingual. I grew up in a multicultural household. My father was from South Wales. My mother was from North Wales. So very diverse. But actually, my dad was brought up in Yorkshire. He had a Yorkshire accent and spoke with a slight lisp. And if you know what my father's voice was, that's exactly it. Exactly. And it started there. So you grow up bilingual, you hear things differently. There's always two ways of saying things. So I've always heard accents. And being a roadie, travelling for years, you get exposed to different accents all over the world and all over the UK, and you get to identify regional accents. It is a useful one. It's not a clang, but it's a, most people can tell the difference between someone from the north and someone from the south of England, I'm going to say, right? In the north, it's Bath and Path. In the south, it's Bath and Path. And we all know which one is right, because if it was pronounced Bath, it would have an R or a double A in it, right? So it's Bath and Path. But Phil Cornwell and I, who I mentioned before, the voice of Gilbert, worked out this theory that it's just as easy to tell whether somebody is from the east of the country or the west of the country by a similar sort of rule. And the best example is Yorkshire and Lancashire. You meet someone from Lancashire and it's all drawn out. You come from Garstang or Blackburn or somewhere like Fred Dibnar. Oh, exactly, all that right. It's all rural and drawn out. But you take the same accents and make it short, and you get Yorkshire, don't you? That's Leeds, that's Bradford.
That's remarkably. That sounds remarkably like.
Basically, a Yorkshireman is a short version of a Lancashire man.
Yeah, and the same rule applies in Scotland. Come from Glasgow, it's all drawn out from Glasgow, right? From Edinburgh, it's all short and clipped. And it works all the way up and down the countryside. People from Bristol, Bristol's a good old thing. They're living in Bristol and the countryside. It's all lovely, isn't it now, right? You take the same accent and travel to the east and you get Suffolk and Norfolk, which is the same accent. It's all short and clipped. Covered in mud. I've been covered in mud, Norfolk I'm from. And it works. It's a good guideline. If you meet someone east or west, and it's the Celts versus the invaders. All of them, mainly the Vikings, but very much the Saxons and even the Normans too. The Celts are all long and drawn out and wispy. The Vikings and the people from the East, technology and attack. So, thank you for coming to my TED Talk. I'll leave now.
I was going to say, Pete, what category do we fall into? Are we short and sharp, or are we quite
You're short and sharp, you'll land them. You'll land them, but you'll corrupt it by London. Close enough for London. Yeah,
technically I'm Hampshire, so I'm a bit posh on the side, but
Well, you're
although saying that, did you? And I know the answer to this, Gaz. When you go to America, isn't it amazing how you judge which kind of accent they pick up on? So a diner, for instance, would go, "Oh, I love your accent. Where are you from?" And you either over Cockney it and become a bit Danny Dyer, or you nip into a little bit of Hugh Grant and kind of smoosh your way out, and you go literally left or right. And you did it loads. You did it on the plane out there.
I find myself in America talking like this so they can understand me. It's a radio voice. Otherwise I'm like this. If I ever come from North Wales, can't understand a word I'm saying. But I remember going into a Safeways in San Francisco once and asking for a pack of Marlboro. And the girl behind the desk turned to me and she said, "I have no idea what you just said, but it sounded beautiful."
I went into I went into a cafe in San Diego once, and I was with a mate of mine, and he'd been over there for years, and he ordered, and they obviously clearly understood him. So I went, "Can I have an orange juice?" And the woman's face, she literally looked blankly at me and said, "What?" I went, "An orange juice." And this took about 3 times, and eventually something in the back of my head clicked, and I went, "An orange juice?" And then she went, "Oh yeah," and she got it. It's like, literally.
You try telling Americans that you work for a band called The Alarm. The Alarm? The Alarm? What's the Alarm?
The Alarm. I think that's a stretch, yeah. The Alarm.
The Alarm.
Oh no, he's gone all Gordon on us. Sorry, Gilbert, not Gordon, Gilbert.
Gilbert. I know what you meant.
Yeah. My question to you is, I'd love to get, and I used to have one, a Gilbert the Snot Monster T-shirt, but they're very hard. There's none on eBay. There's none on Vinted. You haven't got one, have you?
I think I have.
Ooh.
I think I have. I've got a how-to shirt. I've got a get fresh shirt.
I just love it, man. Do you remember the one with Wendy James from Transition Band?
Oh, Wendy James. I was a bit worried when I met Wendy James. She knew more about me than I did.
Really?
Yeah. I know why, because her manager used to be the Alarms tour manager, Simon Watson. But it was slightly unsettling when that happens. See, that's what it's like being famous. People know more about you than you know about them. Right? I'm not saying I'm famous. I'm saying that's what it's like to be
infamous.
Infamous. Infamy. They've all got it infamy.
So leading on to that question, if I had to say to you, who are the three people who you've been most starstruck to meet in your illustrious life? Could you, apart from Buzz Aldrin, who would you say you were kind of a little bit starstruck and not knowing what to say? I suppose Jenna Coleman as well. Well, you got one more then, go on.
Jenna Coleman was definitely the one I was starstruck. I really struggle with any professional work I have to do with any member of Slade. I've been a Slade fan since I was 10. They were my gateway to rock and roll. And I've known them since I was 16. I met them when I was 16 as a fan. And then a few years later, I'm on television, and suddenly I'm interviewing them, and Jimmy Lee says to me, "It's you? I remember you coming into that place in Buckley. You were going 10 to the dozen. But you weren't talking shit, he says. Oh, man. And that means an awful lot to me. You know, Slade are my heroes. Jimmy was my ultimate hero in Slade. Yeah. But I've worked with them, I've interviewed them, I've made documentaries about them over the years. And every time I have to sit down and talk to them, I'm a 10-year-old boy shivering in his pants. Every time. And I will never get over that. And if I do, shoot me. Because I'm clearly not alive and enjoying the moment anymore. The big starstruck action every time, repeatedly. And it's happened for... How old am I now? 62, and I met them when I was 17. I don't know how many years that is. Carol Vorderman did the maths in the How table, not me. But, Slade, clobber me. Interviewing Jim Lovell, Apollo 13 and other Apollo missions and Gemini missions. He has such a famous round voice that, just speaking to him on the phone makes you think, oh, God, it's you. It really is. Please, I mustn't say the wrong thing. That sort of thing happens.
I might go and dig out Apollo 13 again just so I can go and see if Jim Lovell does sound like that.
Yeah, Jim Lovell got a very reassuring voice.
How accurate was that film, by the way?
Largely. There's a couple of conceits in it. The one is where Ken Mattingly is at the base.
He's the standby, isn't he?
Yeah, that's right. Well, he was originally scheduled for the mission, but he got they thought he was going to get tonsillitis, so they pulled him off.
That's right.
And there's a shot of him next to his Corvette, which is accurate. All the astronauts were given Corvettes. But he's right at the base of Launchpad 39A at John F. Kennedy Space Center, where I've stood, Clang.
Nice.
And I've touched the space shuttle.
It's a situational clang as well.
Yeah,
right?
It's our first. Yeah. It's our first situational clang. Yeah, he stood there as the rocket launcher's going, "Good luck, guys." Mate, you wouldn't have been within 10 miles of that.
Bye then. Take care. Yeah.
But yeah, very much largely, I can't fault everything else in the film. From what I know, is close enough. They've bit of telescoping where they compress events one on top of the other, so you've got a tumble of events. But all those events happened. Yeah, all those truths. I mean, the most amazing, NASA's most successful mission, you could argue, Apollo 13. Oh.
I might go and watch that again tonight. Actually,
don't let me stop you. All right, do you want my almost clang?
Yes, that's going to be the next one. It's kind of like, it's nice to see actually that our first guest has done his homework.
I've always prepared. Fred Dinage said to me, Clang. Fred Dinage said to me two things: "Toppy, old love, it's not a sprint, it's a marathon." So okay, stay with it. And the other one is, do your bloody homework. And I've always done my homework. I mean, that's why I'm on telly. I'm the sort of person who's always doing his homework, got loads of nonsense to talk about, and it's like turning a party with beer, isn't it? It's not like, where are the drinks, tell me where to stand, tell me what to say. You turn up with, right, I want to tell you this, put the camera here, I'm going to tell you things. There are different types of presenters. That's the variety I am. I turn up with the beer. The almost clangs, there's two for you. the Alarm, first one, in 1986, played a gig at UCLA in California. Yeah. It was the first live telecast on MTV that they'd ever done. It was a huge event, 25,000 people. It was really something. By this point, I'd stopped working for the Alarm for about 18 months. I was now on Music Box and the start of Get Fresh as a TV presenter. In fact, this gig happened on April the 12th, 1986, which is the day I did the pilot for Get Fresh in Newcastle, underneath the Tyne Bridge, next to Tuxedo Princess. And Ian Wilson, the manager of the Alarm, asked if I would come and introduce the band on stage in America on MTV, which is, thank you very much. It's a huge privilege. You know, this wanted me there to make it feel like we own it. And so they looked into whether they could get me to the gig in California, which of course is 8 hours behind us in Europe, having done the pilot for Get Fresh in the morning. And the only way to do this would be to fly from, working backwards, you know, I'd have to get to New York, and from New York I'd have to get a jumbo to California. And there was a flight that would get me in, and there was a flight that connected with it in New York that came from London, Concorde. So they booked me a seat on Concorde, booked me a seat on that, and then tried to get me on a shuttle from Newcastle to London to make the Concorde flight. Couldn't get me on.
No.
So I never... Yeah, they were willing to pay for a Concorde flight to fly me over, do all that, but I simply couldn't get to the airport in time to get on Concorde. So that's my almost clang. I was almost, you know, the first person to host a live telecast on MTV.
Wow.
Yeah. There's another one. I made a note. What was it? Okay. How To was made for the first 3 years by TVS, your local broadcaster where you live, right? They're now called Meridian, but the people who held the franchise for that ITV part of the world in the 90s were called TVS, before them Southern Television. And TVS also made Art Attack in the same studio as How To. It's the reason that they look the same. It was the same people working on the same two shows. Yeah. And the producer of the first 3 years of How To, Tim Edmonds, became the producer of Art Attack, and off they went. Very successfully made Art Attack for Children's ITV independently, as an independent, and How To went to Scotland when TVS lost their franchise. That's what happened. So after a few years of doing Art Attack, Tim said to me, I've got this idea where we think we could probably make Art Attack in a number of languages other than English. And the way to prove to do this would be if the presenter isn't the artist, but is just the presenter on the show, would you come and do a pilot for us? What, me do Art Attack? Yeah, okay. Well, you don't have to do the art, just do the introductions and stuff. But can you do it in Welsh, he said. Yeah, I could do it in Welsh. It's, you know, another language. And that's what they were pitching for. So I shot this pilot of Art Attack, of me presenting it in Welsh, that was then shown to Disney. Disney liked the idea of international Art Attack so much that they bought the company that made Art Attack, not just the programme. They bought the company, the Media Merchants, for £16 million. And half the Media Merchant was owned by Neil Buchanan, the other half was owned by my mate Tim, the producer. So they got £8 million out of that day's work that I did for them, that they paid me 450 quid for. I'm not knocking it. I wish it couldn't have to a nicer person, Tim Edmonds. He deserves all
talking
that
of nice people, Gaz, I gotta say, mate, you are one of the nicest people I know, and I'm double proud to call you one of my 13 best friends. So
back at you, brother. Back at
we're gonna
before you go anywhere, right?
Wrap it up, Pete. Wrap it up.
I'm going to wrap it up. I'm a celebrity. Get me out of here.
What?
Are you going to do it?
Never. No. That's not what I do. It's not what I do. The people who go on those sort of shows are people who think that they deserve to win that show because they're great. They've got a great personality. Everyone will love me. That's not what I do. What I do on television, it's more like a man who works in a bank or an architect. I've got a job to do. It just happens that my job is on television. My job is explaining stuff, stories, and how stuff works. So I'm not seeking that kind of reward that a lot of people need. A lot of people have all sorts of confidence problems. So no, I won't do it. Sorry. Thank you for asking. I might do a dancing show or a gymnastics or a swimming show though, but that's different.
Yeah, no, it would just. I was just thinking it would be nice. It'd be nice to see you back in there. I think somewhere.
I will surface somewhere. I'm not done yet. I'm 62, but I've got the body and mind of a 61-year-old.
And on that bombshell, we're going to leave it, viewers. Say goodbye, clangers. Thanks, Gaz.
Thank you very much.
Love you, mate.
Love you too, boys. That's how for now. Thanks for having me on.
There you go, friends. Another fabulous episode. If you'd like to get in touch with us, you can get in touch with me at Smiley the Drummer on Instagram, Steve Smiley Barnard on Facebook. Peter,
and
people need to send their clangs in. How do they do it?
We have an email address, ladies and gentlemen. We have an email address, which is it's clangpodcast@gmail.com. Once more, that's clangpodcast@gmail.com.
Wow, what amazing coincidence, eh? That kind of ties in with the whole premise.
It's amazing. I'm to be honest, I'm amazed they still had it available. Actually, I thought that had gone a long time ago.
Anyway, clangers, we shall see you next time. For the next episode with another celebrity guest. It's good night from me. It's good night from him. Good night.
It's good night from him again. Bye.
Clang, the podcast.